Close your eyes and let the haze of time roll gently backward, like a fog drifting across the quiet waters of memory. The present slips away, and the year is now 1850, an age dressed in coal smoke and lace, where lamplight glimmers faintly on rain-slicked stones, and the pulse of the city beats slowly under the weight of the Industrial Revolution. London, Birmingham. The names are whispered like a litany of iron and fire. Cities alive with factories, with endless chimneys rising into the gray sky, with railways stretching across the land like veins of steel. The empire expands outward, its sails spread across oceans, its merchants dealing in spices, tea, cotton, and opium. Yet behind the noise, behind the roar of machines and the shouting of markets, there is another world, a quieter world, the world of the Victorian home, where curtains are drawn against the soot, where polished furniture reflects the glow of candlelight, where women sit silently in parlors, embroidering, nursing infants, or simply enduring the stillness of their roles. For the women of this age carry burdens unseen. They are expected to smile, to suffer in silence, to hold their households together with an invisible strength, while their own health, their own emotions, remain unspoken, unacknowledged, folded away like letters never sent. Childbirth leaves them weakened. Menstruation is treated as shameful. Nervousness, exhaustion, sadness. All are called female weakness, as though being a woman were itself an ailment. And when pain overwhelms them, when the weight of body and spirit becomes too heavy, they do not cry out. They do not rebel. They are told to endure. But endurance has a cost. And so the doctors of this age, men with dark coats and serious brows, offer comfort in bottles. Small bottles, corked and labeled with elegant letters. The medicine within glows amber in lamplight, its taste both sweet and bitter, its promise simple, to quiet the pain, to soothe the nerves, to grant rest. It is called Lordinham, a liquid opium, perfectly legal, perfectly respectable, prescribed as casually as one might prescribe a walk in the garden. It is recommended for women after childbirth, for sleeplessness, for nervous exhaustion, for coughs, colds, toothaches, even for fretful infants. It is, in truth, a universal cure, or so it seems. Imagine a young mother in a modest London home, her body still aching from labor, her nights broken by the cries of her newborn. The doctor calls, inscribes a note, and soon a small vial sits by her bedside. She takes a spoonful. The ache dulls, her nerves steady. She feels lighter, as though her burdens have been gently lifted. Imagine an older lady, her joints stiff, her nights restless with memories of loss. Her husband long gone, her children scattered. The medicine man delivers a cordial, a few drops of laudanum in wine. She sips, and the shadows in her mind soften into dreams. And so it begins, not with scandal, not with sin, but with trust, with faith in medicine, with faith in the authority of doctors and apothecaries, with faith that progress always brings healing. But hidden in the sweetness of the syrup, beneath the respectability of its label, lies the ancient resin of the poppy. Opium, a drug as old as Mesopotamia, as intoxicating as paradise, as merciless as death. No one speaks of this. No one dares. For addiction is not yet a word that fits into the language of polite society. Instead, there are whispers of nervous disorders, of delicate constitutions, of women who grow frail without reason, who grow pale and distant, their eyes shadowed, their hands trembling. These women are pitied, they are prayed for, but their bottles are quietly refilled. And so the cycle turns, bottle after bottle, spoon after spoon, week after week, year after year, until the medicine becomes not a remedy, but a chain. And though the chain is invisible, it binds as tightly as iron. It binds women to their beds, to their illnesses, to their secrets, in the hush of the parlor, in the darkness of the bedroom, in the silence of the nursery where the infant cries have gone suddenly quiet. The bottle gleams on the nightstand, a drop of comfort, a drop of poison, a drop of history, waiting to unfold. This, dear listener, is the beginning of a hidden epidemic. An epidemic draped in lace and gentility. An epidemic spoken of only in whispers. An epidemic that will shape not only lives, but generations. Rest your mind upon this picture. A candle flickers low. The streets outside are hushed. A woman lies in her bed, her breath finally steady, her hand loose upon the coverlet, while the bottle beside her glows faintly in the firelight. She is a piece, but only for now. For this is how the silent poison enters, not as a thief in the night, but as a guest welcomed into the home. The year drifts onward, the lamps are lit, the carriages rattle down the cobbled streets, and in every respectable district of Victorian England, another bottle is uncorked, another spoon is lifted, another dose is taken in quiet faith. Opium is no stranger to the world. For centuries it has flowed along the veins of empire, from the poppy fields of Asia to the markets of London. But now, in the age of Queen Victoria, it wears a different mask. It is no longer the exotic indulgence of poets and dreamers. It has been transformed into a cure, a household necessity, a gentle companion for life's little miseries. Step into an apothecary's shop. The air smells of herbs, camphor, and alcohol. Shelves rise to the ceiling, lined with jars and vials, each neatly labeled in looping script. Behind the polished counter, the apothecary in his waistcoat bows politely. A lady enters, her bonnet tied with silk ribbons, her eyes tired, her hands gloved but trembling. She murmurs of sleepless nights, of palpitations, of exhaustion that will not lift. The apothecary nods. He does not frown. He does not pry. Instead, he reaches for the familiar bottle. "Lordinham," he says softly, as though speaking the name of a trusted friend. He pours, measures, corks. The bottle is wrapped in brown paper, tied with string, and pressed into her waiting hand. She sighs with relief. She clutches it as though it were salvation. And in a sense, it is. Not far away, in a marketplace bustling with voices, a different scene unfolds. Patent medicines are on display, their labels gilded with promises. Cure for all female weakness. Elixir of calm nerves. Mother's quiet friend. They are sold openly, with no shame, no secrecy. Advertisements fill the newspapers, extolling the virtues of these miraculous cordials. Respectable women speak of them in drawing rooms. Servants fetch them without question. Mothers dose them to their infants. For this is the secret of the epidemic. It is hidden in plain sight. It does not come with scandal or whispers. It comes with trust, with prescription, with recommendation. It wears the cloak of science, and so it passes unchallenged. Imagine the comfort it brings. A weary seamstress, her fingers raw from endless stitching, takes a draught before bed and finds, at last, a few hours of dreamless rest. A young wife, overwhelmed by loneliness in her marriage, sips her cordial and feels the edge of despair soften into calm. A mother with a colicky infant adds a few drops to the child's milk, and silence, blessed silence, fills the nursery. Each dose seems a mercy, each spoonful a small miracle. But beneath the mercy lies a price not yet reckoned. For the body begins to crave what it once received freely. The mind begins to depend upon the calm, the stillness, the heavy velvet of opium's embrace. And yet, in this age, there is no word for what is happening, no word for the invisible threads tightening around these women. Addiction is not a concept, it is a shadow not yet named. Doctors assure them it is safe. Priests turn their gaze away. Husbands nod in approval, glad their wives are quiet, grateful their households are steady. And so the cycle deepens. The respectable cure becomes the respectable chain, and no one dares speak of it. Can you hear the silence of those rooms? A silence broken only by the ticking of the clock, the crackle of the hearth, the gentle clink of glass against porcelain, as another spoonful is poured, and another woman drifts into that heavy, velvety sleep. a sleep that seems like peace, a sleep that seems like mercy, a sleep that seems like healing. But it is only the beginning. For this is how the epidemic grows. Not through scandal, not through rebellion, but through the quiet, steady rhythm of trust. Through bottles refilled without question. Through the slow weaving of invisible chains. And outside, the world moves on. Factories roar, empires expand, steamships carry cargo across the seas. But behind the curtains of countless homes, in the hushed chambers of women's lives, a silent epidemic spreads, one sip at a time. The years pass quietly, and yet in parlors and bedchambers, a new kind of silence begins to take root. It is not the silence of peace, but of concealment, a silence heavy with secrets, with shame, with bottles hidden in drawers and cupboards, tucked away beneath folded linen and sewing baskets. For as the doses lengthen, as the spoonfuls grow larger, women begin to understand something they cannot name. They realize the comfort they depend upon cannot be easily set aside. And so begins the first deception. Picture a young wife, pale in the lamplight. Her husband sits reading his newspaper, spectacles perched on his nose, while beside her chair, hidden in the folds of her gown, is a vial half drained of its contents. She sips when his gaze is lowered. She sighs softly, and when he glances up, she smiles as though nothing is amiss. Another woman sends her maid to the apothecary, the coin pressed into her servant's hand. "Tell them it is for the mistress's nerves," she says, her voice steady, though her hands tremble with longing. The servant does as she is told, loyal and questioning, and the bottle returns wrapped in brown paper, the ritual complete. Some women grow more cunning. They visit several shops in turn, never buying too much from one place, lest questions be asked. They invent ailments, feign coughs, speak of sleeplessness, all to justify another purchase. These are not grand deceptions. They are quiet, domestic, woven seamlessly into the fabric of everyday life. But behind them lies a desperation, a need that grows stronger with each week, each month, each year. And yet, society does not see, or perhaps it chooses not to. For these are respectable women, mothers, wives, daughters of good families. To admit their dependency would be to admit a flaw in the very heart of the household, a crack in the carefully polished surface of Victorian virtue. And so the truth is hidden. Addiction wears the mask of delicacy. Withdrawal is described as a fainting spell. Shaking hands are called nervousness. Hollow cheeks are explained away as fragility. The whispers spread, but never openly. Poor Mrs. W, she has grown quite weak of late. Miss H seems always unwell, the poor dear. Euphemisms cloak the reality, wrapping it in gentility. And in this silence, the epidemic thrives. Think of the loneliness these women must have felt, to hide their habits from their husbands, to avoid the questioning eyes of their children, to mask their cravings with polite laughter at the dinner table, while their thoughts drift only to the next dose. And all the while, society praises them for their composure, for their calmness, for their serene and dutiful presence, never realizing that the serenity is purchased in ounces of opium. The home becomes a stage. The parlor, the drawing room, the nursery, all scenes in a quiet play, where women act out the roles expected of them, while their true struggles unfold in the shadows. Listen closely, and you can almost hear it. The clink of glass as a bottle is opened in secret, the hush of fabric as it is slipped back into hiding, the slow, relieved exhale of a woman who feels her body loosen once more, under the velvet weight of the drug. This is not scandal in the sense the newspapers would ever print. It is a private scandal, a domestic tragedy, lived behind lace curtains, shielded from the eyes of the world. And yet, in every respectable street, in every respectable home, there are bottles, there are secrets, there are women carrying their chains in silence. And the silence is louder than any cry for help could ever be. The parlor was the beating heart of the Victorian home. Here, visitors were received, Tea was poured with delicate ceremony, and the family displayed its taste, its refinement, its moral standing. Polished mahogany gleamed in the soft light, chintz curtains swayed gently with the breeze, a pianoforte waited patiently in the corner. On the mantelpiece, porcelain figurines watched over the room, silent witnesses to the small dramas of daily life. Everything in the parlor spoke of order, of gentility, of composure, and yet, behind this display, in the folds of fabric and in the faint tremor of hands, another story lingered. For many of the women who presided over these parlors, their serenity was not their own. It was borrowed, measured out in teaspoons of tincture, in carefully hidden vials. The calm smile they wore for their guests was shaped, softened, sustained by opium's invisible embrace. Imagine an afternoon visit. Two matrons sit across from one another, lace gloves folded neatly in their laps. They discuss the latest charity bazaar, the weather, the state of the Queen's health. Their voices are gentle, their manners impeccable, but beneath one woman's chair, in her reticule, rests a small glass bottle. The knowledge of it pulses at the edge of her thoughts, a quiet promise of relief when the visit is done. Another woman excuses herself for a moment. She retreats to the bedroom, where on her dressing table waits a familiar vial. She takes her draught quickly, carefully, the liquid burning just slightly on her tongue. When she returns, her cheeks are faintly flushed, her movements softened, her composure renewed. Her guests never notice. In these parlors, addiction did not appear as ruin. It appeared as calmness, as patience with children, as gentleness with a difficult husband, as the ability to sit for hours, embroidering, listening, smiling faintly. Society admired these qualities, never suspecting their source, and so the parlor became a stage, a space of performance, where respectability was preserved, while dependence deepened quietly, just out of sight. Think of the contradiction. In a world where women were praised for restraint, for delicacy, for soft endurance, they were also given, by doctors and apothecaries, the very substance that bound them in silence. No one spoke of it aloud. To hint at such things would have been impolite. And politeness, in these rooms, was more sacred than truth. But if one could listen closely enough, beneath the ticking of the mantel clock, beneath the rustle of skirts, beneath the polite laughter over tea, one might hear a different rhythm, a heart beating faster than it should, a breath drawn in with too much effort, a sigh of relief as the tincture began to work. It is here, in the parlors of respectability, that the epidemic sank its roots deepest. For as long as the outward performance was flawless, as long as the curtains were drawn, and the silver shone, and the women smiled, no one thought to ask, what price was being paid for such perfection? And so the bottles stayed hidden, the vials stayed close at hand, the silence grew, and the epidemic spread, polished, respectable, and unseen. In the stillness of the Victorian home, there were eyes that saw more than they were meant to. The children, they were small, but often tucked away in nurseries or sent outdoors to play. But children are observers by nature. They notice things adults dismiss. They see the tremor in their mother's hand, the way her eyes drift away mid-conversation, the strange glass bottles that glisten faintly on her nightstand. To a child, it may not seem sinister. It may seem ordinary. After all, the bottle has always been there. The spoon has always carried its dark liquid. The sigh that follows has always been part of the household rhythm. And yet, in their quiet way, the children learn to associate their mother's peace with the moment after the bottle is touched. They come to know that before, she is restless, short of temper, her forehead damp with sweat. She is gentle, smiling faintly, her touch softer on their hair. Some children, curious, taste the drops themselves when no one is watching. The sweetness surprises them. The heaviness that follows frightens them. They do not understand, but they feel the weight of it in their small limbs, in the fog that creeps over their play. Others never touch, but they watch closely. They hear the soft clink of glass in the evenings, They hear the whispered instructions to servants. Fetch more from the apothecary. They hear the excuses. Mother is tired. Mother has a headache. Mother is not to be disturbed. These small observations become the background music of childhood. The ticking clock, the rustle of skirts, the low hum of a mother sighing in relief as the tincture takes hold. And so, in silence, the next generation learns, not through words, but through atmosphere, through the examples set not in sermons or school books, but in parlors and bedchambers. Imagine the confusion in a child's heart to see a mother who is both present and absent, smiling but distant, tender yet unreachable, to sense that something unseen holds her in its grasp. And yet, in Victorian society, such things were never explained. Children were to be shielded from unpleasant truths. But silence does not erase awareness. It only deepens it. Many would grow up remembering these moments, not as scandals, but as quiet peculiarities of home. A faint taste of medicine on their mother's breath when she kissed them goodnight. The sound of her door closing softly when she retreated for rest. The dim glow of a lamp burning too late into the night. To the outside world, the Victorian household was immaculate, a fortress of morals and manners. But to the children inside, it was also a place where shadows pooled quietly in corners, where bottles gleamed faintly in the half-light, where their mothers' smiles were bought and borrowed from the depths of an amber liquid. And though they did not yet understand it, the memory of these things would follow them into their own adult lives, whispering of dependencies unspoken, of secrets too heavy for words. The children watched, and the silence was passed on. In the heart of the Victorian age, the doctor was a figure of authority, a man in dark coat and stiff collar, his black bag heavy with bottles, powders, and promise. To him, families looked for guidance, for comfort, for remedies to soothe the aches of daily life. And the doctors came willingly, walking through polished hallways, nodding to servants, removing their gloves as they entered parlors faint with the smell of coal and lavender. They listened patiently as women described their troubles. Nervousness, sleepless nights, fainting spells, the weight of headaches that lingered too long. What could they offer? A mixture, dark and glistening, already familiar, already trusted. Take this, they said gently, a teaspoon after meals, another at night if the pain should keep you from rest. There was no sense of danger in their words. Opium in its many forms, laudanum, tincture of poppy, syrup for coughs, was not forbidden. It was prescribed. It was praised. It was considered a marvel of medicine. Imagine the reassurance felt by a young mother, her nerves frayed, her body weary after childbirth. She is told by the family doctor, "Do not worry, madam. This will calm your spirits, restore your strength." And so she takes it, trusting him as one trusts a priest, as one trusts the certainty of science. Imagine the relief of an older woman, her joints swollen, her nights restless with pain. The doctor places the vial in her hand, its amber glow catching the firelight. She feels comfort before she has even swallowed a drop, because the doctor has spoken, because the doctor has promised. The ritual of prescription sanctified the bottle. What might have seemed indulgence, what might have felt like weakness, was transformed into treatment, into necessity, into something almost noble. And so dependency took root not in secrecy at first, but in confidence. The confidence that this was medicine, that it had been given by a learned man, that it was as respectable as any tonic or draught. But the body does not care for words. The body only learns to crave. The body only learns to lean upon the velvet weight of the drug. And when the need grew stronger, when the teaspoon became 2, and then 3, the women did not always confess their struggle. For how could they? Had not the doctor himself assured them? Had he not said it was harmless, even beneficial? And so the cycle deepened. The more they used, the more they needed. The more they needed, the more they trusted the hand that had placed the vial in theirs. The doctor left the home, his black bag lighter, his boots striking the cobblestones with steady rhythm. And behind him, in parlors, in bedchambers, in nurseries dim with gaslight, the bottles glistened, the spoons stirred, the sighs of relief rose like prayers. In this way, medicine became dependency, respectability became silence, and the epidemic grew, not through crime or scandal, but through the steady, reassuring voice of the doctor, saying softly, "This will do you good." Behind the polished floors and gleaming silver, behind the curtains and the polite laughter, there moved another set of eyes, another set of hands, the servants of the household. They were quiet observers, ever present yet almost invisible, watching the small rhythms of the home, learning its hidden patterns, absorbing its whispered secrets. The young maid noticed the tremor in her mistress's hand, the sudden relief that followed the lifting of a bottle, the careful hiding of a vial beneath folds of fabric. The nurse attending the infant saw the tiny spoonful taken after a cry, the hush that followed, the way the mother's eyes softened. These observations were not mere curiosity. They were necessity, for the servants' lives were intertwined with those of the women they served. To know the secret was to participate in it, to protect it, to enable it. A bottle had to be procured. The apothecary had to be visited discreetly. Coins had to be handed over without question. Instructions had to be carried out with precision. And all of this, quietly, without attracting the notice of the master of the house, or other guests, or the neighbors. The servants learned quickly that secrecy was survival. A misstep could bring scandal, or worse, a reprimand, a dismissal, a sudden exposure of a delicate household shame. Some servants became adept at concealment. They memorized the hours when bottles were needed. They hid them in drawers, under mattresses, behind books on shelves. They carried messages to the apothecary without faltering, ensuring the supply was uninterrupted. And yet, the burden weighed upon them as well. For how could they reconcile obedience with the knowledge of dependence? They saw the suffering, felt the desperation, and sometimes, in the quiet of their own rooms, they wondered if the very medicine they delivered was part of the misery. Still, loyalty and fear combined to make them silent collaborators. In a home where appearances were paramount, their role was crucial. They kept the bottles flowing. They hid the evidence. They maintained the fragile veneer of respectability. And in this delicate dance, the epidemic deepened. It was no longer only a matter of medicine, nor only a matter of will. It was woven into the very structure of the household, with each servant acting as both witness and enabler, each spoonful administered under the guise of duty. Listen carefully. Can you hear the hush of footsteps, carrying a wrapped bottle down the narrow hallway? The careful slide of paper over glass? The soft whisper of instructions to the nurse or maid? The subtle acknowledgement that a secret has been kept, and that life will go on as though nothing has changed? The epidemic thrived in this silence, sustained by trust and fear, by loyalty and complicity, by the intricate choreography of those who served and those who were served. It was invisible to the public eye, yet everywhere within the walls of the home. A shadow resting behind polished floors and silk curtains, moving quietly, never acknowledged, never named. And so the women remained dependent, the children watched and learned, the servants carried the secret, and the epidemic stretched quietly, like smoke curling in the corners of a well-lit room. In the dim nursery, the cradle rocks gently back and forth, its occupant tiny, fragile, a life newly begun. The air is thick with the scent of lavender and warmth, the soft hush of night settling over the room. Here, the cycle begins again, for even the youngest are touched by the hidden epidemic, even before they can speak or understand. A mother, exhausted from the demands of childbirth, turns to the soothing tincture once more. She lifts the spoon, measures the drops carefully, and offers them to her child. The infant does not know the weight of the medicine, does not yet understand the comfort it brings, or the danger it hides. But the body remembers, the body absorbs, the mind feels the calm, and the cycle of dependency begins, quietly, invisibly. Imagine the first night, the child crying in the pale lamplight. The mother, weary beyond measure, administers a few drops of Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup. The crying subsides. The tiny body relaxes. The mother exhales, relieved, grateful, perhaps even ashamed. And in the nursery, silence falls. But it is a silence bought at a price. For the body of the infant begins to recognize the presence of opium. The brain learns its pattern. The nerves begin to lean upon it, long before the child can call it by name. Other mothers follow the same practice. The practice is recommended, expected, even praised. Doctors nod their approval. Pharmaceutical advertisements suggest it is necessary, a sign of good care. And so a generation is quietly shaped. A generation whose earliest experience of comfort is entwined with the very substance that will later ensnare them, should circumstance allow. Even the servants notice. They watch the infant relax. They see the tension lift from the mother's face. They understand the secret need for these drops. And yet, like the mothers, they say nothing. For silence has become the currency of survival. Outside the nursery, life continues in the parlor and hallways. The household maintains its composure. The world sees calm, order, and gentility. Inside, the unseen web tightens, thread by delicate thread. And when the child grows, even slightly, the memory of these nights, the taste of the tincture, will linger in subtle ways, echoing in the body, in the breath, in the quiet longing for a sense of relief that feels like mercy. This is how addiction crosses generations. Not with shouting, not with scandal, but in gentle sips, administered in love, masked by care, hidden behind the soft lullaby of a mother's voice. Listen. And you may hear the whisper of that first taste, the cradle's gentle rock, the hush of a tiny sigh, the beginning of a story that will unfold quietly for years to come. In the parlors and bedrooms of Victorian homes, there existed a language carefully chosen, a code of polite words that masked realities too difficult to name. Poor nerves, delicate constitution, fainting spells. These phrases floated gently through society, spoken in soft voices over tea, written in careful letters to distant relatives, mentioned in passing to curious neighbors. No one dared speak the truth aloud, and yet everyone understood, in a hidden way, that something more profound was at play. The doctors, the apothecaries, the families, all agreed upon the language of discretion. A woman's trembling hands were not addiction. They were nervousness. Her hollow cheeks were not withdrawal. They were fragility. Her restless nights were not cravings. They were simply part of a delicate temperament. And so the epidemic wore a mask, its presence softened by euphemism, its danger hidden beneath genteel words. The women who suffered could not speak of it freely, for to do so would be to admit weakness, to shatter the perfection of the household, to invite gossip and disgrace. Imagine the sighs that followed fainting spells, the quiet retreats to private rooms, the gentle pouring of a teaspoon from a familiar vial. These were not acts of indulgence, they were acts of survival. And yet, to the world, they appeared as calmness, as decorum, as the steady resilience of a Victorian lady. The servants whispered too, their voices low in the halls, passing messages discreetly, not daring to name what everyone understood in silence. The air in the house was heavy with unspoken knowledge. Each footstep, each clink of glass, each hushed conversation, adding to the quiet tension that surrounded the women. The euphemisms created a protective shield, but they also allowed the crisis to deepen unseen. The disease of dependence hid in plain sight, cloaked in respectability, reinforced by societal expectations, and nurtured by the gentle assurances of doctors who could not, or would not, name it. And so, women learned to live within the narrow corridors of polite speech, balancing their cravings with propriety, their secret needs with the public display of virtue. Their pain was masked, their dependency was hidden, their suffering, though profound, remained unspoken. In this quiet, the epidemic spread with a subtle persistence. It required no scandal, no shouting, no alarms. Grew gently, like shadows lengthening across a polished floor, like whispers of wind curling softly around the corners of a room, always present, always hidden, always shaping lives in ways the world could not see. And so, the women endured, their lips smiling politely, their hands steady in public, while beneath, their hearts and bodies listened to the quiet call of the medicine that promised relief. As the days blend into weeks, and the weeks into months, a quiet desperation begins to settle over the home, so subtle that it is almost invisible to those who walk past its doors. It is the weight that presses on the shoulders of women, who smile politely at visitors, who tend to their children with gentle hands, who maintain the household in perfect order. They move through rooms with a measured grace, every gesture calculated, every glance considered, all while a secret hunger coils quietly in their bodies, a yearning for the comfort only the amber liquid can provide. Imagine the moments when they are alone, the bedroom dim with gaslight, the curtains drawn against prying eyes, the soft whisper of fabric as a drawer is opened, the faint clink of glass as the bottle is lifted. There is relief, brief and comforting, a softening of tension, a stilling of the mind, but it is fleeting. The desire returns, patient and insistent, waiting for the next quiet hour, the next soft sigh, the next hidden spoonful. And yet, the women cannot speak of this desperation. To confess would be unthinkable. They would risk social shame, family reproach, and the destruction of their carefully constructed worlds. So they endure in silence, performing the rituals of domestic life with unwavering attention, while the secret continues to grow, invisible yet relentless. Some women begin to lose themselves to the rhythm of dependency. They forget the moments before the medicine, their minds dulled to the sharp edges of emotion, their bodies leaning ever more heavily on the comfort it brings. And still, society sees only composure, not the tremor beneath the surface, not the sigh that escapes when no one watches, not the shadowed eyes that search for the next dose. The children notice, even if they do not understand. They sense the tension, they feel the relief. They learn that comfort can come in silence and in secrecy. And the servants, ever watchful, maintain the delicate balance, enabling survival, safeguarding secrets, ensuring the continuity of appearances. In this quiet desperation, the epidemic continues to flourish. It moves gently through the household, woven into daily routines, hidden behind politeness and propriety, and nurtured by the gentle assurances of medicine and social expectation. And if one were to listen closely, to the soft exhale of a woman alone in her room, to the faint rustle of fabric as she reaches for the bottle, to the delicate sigh of a child rocked to sleep, one might hear the silent echo of countless lives, bound together by secrecy, by comfort, and by a quiet, unspoken despair. In the quiet corners of the home, beyond the parlors and nurseries, beyond the polite smiles and measured steps, there was another burden, often invisible, yet heavy as iron: the cost of dependency. For opium was not freely given. It was a commodity, a substance to be purchased, measured, and maintained. Every bottle, every teaspoonful, added a weight to the household budget, a secret tally kept in silence. Imagine the mother, counting coins late at night, slipping notes discreetly to the apothecary, always careful not to arouse suspicion. The servants assist quietly, fetching the medicine, ensuring supply, all the while aware of the unseen price being paid. Sometimes the cost was financial. Family fortunes slowly diminished, drained by the need to maintain appearances, to ensure that the medicine never ran out, to preserve the delicate balance of composure and secrecy. Sometimes the cost was social. Letters were written with careful phrasing, apologies offered to friends and relatives for imagined slights, explanations crafted for behavior that might appear unusual. The household performed perfection, yet always with one eye on the precarious shadow of dependency. Sometimes the cost was personal. Women stole small amounts from household funds, pocketed coins, borrowed discreetly, all to satisfy the quiet, relentless call of the medicine. Each act carried a sting of guilt, a silent acknowledgement of the secret life hidden behind decorum. Even children felt the weight, sensing the tension when coins were counted, watching the careful transaction of vials and spoons, learning early that secrecy had a value and that survival sometimes required quiet compromise. And so the hidden expense was not merely monetary. It was woven into the fabric of every household, threaded through the laughter, the quiet conversations, the polished floors, and the soft rustle of skirts. The epidemic thrived not just in bodies and minds, but in the ledger of small, invisible transactions, in the delicate economy of trust, and in the intricate choreography of secrecy that allowed life to continue. Without scandal, without notice, without acknowledgement. In this way, the cost became part of the rhythm of daily life. A burden carried silently, never spoken, never acknowledged, yet always present, like the faint hum of a clock, like the distant echo of footsteps along polished floors, reminding every soul in the household that survival had its price, and that comfort, however gentle, was never without consequence. In the softly lit parlors and shadowed bedrooms, the women of Victorian households became masters of gentle deception, not the kind born of malice, but the kind required for survival, for maintaining appearances, for keeping the delicate balance between duty and desire. Every gesture was measured, every word chosen carefully, so that no hint of dependency might reach the ears of the curious, the judgmental, or the concerned. A teacup left slightly ajar, a smile masking a tremor, a hand resting lightly over a hidden bottle. These were the small arts of concealment. Servants played their part, slipping into the rhythm of secrecy. They watched, they assisted, they never spoke of what they observed. They learned the precise moment to fetch the apothecary's delivery, the way to pass the coins discreetly, the silence required to preserve the illusion of calm. And the children, ever observant, saw the world through half-understood clues. They noticed the slight hesitation of a mother's hand, the careful placement of vials upon shelves, the secretive instructions whispered in low tones. They did not understand the full weight of what they witnessed, but they learned the patterns, the rules of this silent, necessary deception. Imagine the letters sent to friends. "Oh, she is quite well, though a little nervous, but we manage with care." The truth lay elsewhere, folded neatly between the lines, masked by etiquette and soft phrasing. Even the most observant neighbor might notice nothing, because the art of gentle deception was perfected over months, years, crafted carefully in the quiet shadows of the home. A tremor of the hand became delicate health. A sigh escaping in solitude became momentary fatigue. A hidden spoonful of tincture became invisible, a secret maintained by skill, fear, and the subtle insistence of propriety. And yet, in these small acts of concealment, there was a kind of strength. The women endured, balancing the pressures of society, the needs of their families, and the silent demands of dependency. They became experts in navigating the unseen, in surviving within a world that neither recognized their struggles, nor offered any real support. This gentle deception became a language of its own. Silent gestures, careful words, hidden objects, all combining into a choreography of survival, allowing life to proceed, allowing households to maintain respectability, allowing women to seek relief, even if only in quiet, private moments. And so, the epidemic thrived in silence, in secrecy, in the careful, gentle art of deception, woven seamlessly into the fabric of daily life, unseen by the world outside, yet shaping the very rhythm of the home. As twilight settles over the Victorian streets, casting long shadows that stretch like silent fingers across cobblestones, the household inside begins its evening ritual. The parlor is dim, lit by a single flickering gas lamp, its light catching the edges of polished furniture, casting soft halos over porcelain teacups and silver spoons. Curtains drawn, doors gently closed. The world outside is kept at bay. In these hours, the women prepare their hidden solace. The bottle is lifted from its resting place, its amber liquid glinting faintly in the lamplight. The spoon is measured with precision, each drop counted with care, each movement deliberate, an almost sacred ceremony. The children, tucked into their cradles or beds, watch in muted curiosity or sleep, unaware of the quiet gravity of these moments. The servants move silently, fetching what is needed, ensuring nothing disturbs the delicate rhythm. They have learned the timing, the soft patterns of their mistress's evening, and they move like shadows, ever present yet unseen. The first taste, a sip taken alone, brings immediate relief. Tension melts, fingers relax, breath eases. The body remembers this ritual, its nerves guided by the familiarity of liquid warmth, the familiar comfort that comes with a secret, that comes with relief sanctioned by tradition and trust. But even in this quiet, there is a tension that never fully dissipates. A whispered awareness of dependence, the faint echo of worry that tomorrow may bring the same struggle. The ever-present knowledge that comfort comes at a cost measured in secrecy, in the careful navigation of propriety. The ritual is repeated night after night. It becomes a measure of time, a rhythm as steady as the ticking of the grandfather clock, as constant as the turning of the seasons. It is a pause, the private breath, a moment of solace in the endless choreography of domestic life. And yet, this evening ritual is not just relief. It is a bond between mother and medicine, between secrecy and survival, between comfort and cost. The household moves around it, respecting its sacred hours, ensuring the continuity of calm, allowing the epidemic to flow gently through the home, unseen, uninterrupted, unacknowledged. Listen closely, and you may hear the soft sigh that follows each sip, the gentle settling of tension, the faint clink of the spoon returning to the tray, the quiet harmony of a world maintained by ritual, discretion, and the delicate balance of hidden need. By day, the women of Victorian households wore a social mask, delicate and precise, crafted with care, polished to perfection. They moved through parlors filled with polite conversation, their voices gentle, their gestures measured, their smiles smooth and unbroken. No one could see the tremor hidden beneath the lace of their gloves, the quiet desperation that lingered in their eyes, or the faint shadow of longing for the comfort waiting at home. Visitors were welcomed with elegance, tea poured with exact precision, and small talk flowed effortlessly, masking the hidden truths of their private lives. Each phrase spoken, each laugh offered, was part of a careful choreography, designed to maintain appearances, to protect the household's reputation, to shield the fragile secrets of dependency. Even the simplest of gestures held meaning. The tilt of a head, the graceful fold of hands, the timing of a sip from a teacup, all could be used to conceal, to distract, to reassure others that all was well. The epidemic lived quietly behind these masks, in the rooms unseen, in the moments unobserved. It thrived not in scandal or outcry, but in discretion, in silence, in the careful balance of appearances maintained by necessity and fear. The women learned to move seamlessly between two worlds, the public world of propriety and expectation, and the private world of secret relief. They understood the rules of both, and the cost of failing in either. One wrong step could invite judgment, a ripple of suspicion, a potential collapse of the carefully constructed facade. Even servants became part of this performance, their knowledge unspoken, their loyalty tested, their movements synchronized with the invisible rhythm of the household. Together, they sustained the delicate balance that allowed life to proceed without outward disruption, even as dependency tightened its quiet grip. And yet, within this mask, there was a quiet tragedy. The women's faces, so serene and composed, hid stories of exhaustion, a craving, of whispered prayers for relief that only the amber liquid could provide. Each smile, Each graceful gesture was a carefully placed shield against a world that could not understand, against a society that demanded perfection, against a body that silently longed for mercy. This mask, though invisible to others, was a daily necessity. It allowed survival, maintained respectability, and preserved the fragile dignity of those caught in the gentle, relentless pull of dependency. And so the epidemic continued, hidden behind smiles, woven into conversation, living quietly in the careful performance of social grace, silent, unseen, yet profoundly shaping the lives within every household. In the quiet of the night, with the gas lamps flickering softly and casting gentle shadows across polished desks, women often turned to paper as a companion, a confidant for thoughts that could not be spoken aloud. The letters they wrote were careful, crafted with delicacy and precision. Not one word too revealing, not one phrase too candid, for these pages might be read by others or discovered in some unforeseen moment. Yet, beneath the surface, the words often carried a weight heavier than any spoken confession. Dear friend, they would begin, with a politeness that masked their trembling hearts. I hope this finds you well. We manage as best we can, though the days grow long and wearisome. A hint of strain, a subtle allusion, was hidden in the folds of the letter. The careful phrasing concealed the truth, the relentless longing for relief, the quiet pull of dependency, the exhaustion that seeped into every moment of their lives. Some letters reached distant relatives, pleading in soft, indirect language for advice or understanding. Others were never sent, folded carefully into drawers, hidden beneath linens, perhaps later burned or destroyed, a silent witness to pain that could not be spoken aloud. Within these pages, the struggle was laid bare in whispers, the hesitation before a secret spoonful, the relief that followed, the shame that lingered afterward. It was an intimate testimony of survival, a quiet acknowledgement that life required this delicate, hidden practice. To maintain composure, to fulfill duties, to endure the relentless weight of expectation. Servants sometimes caught glimpses of these letters, or observed the careful act of writing, understanding without understanding, aware that something private and powerful was being set down in ink. And in these moments, the boundaries between witness and participant blurred, as the household collectively carried the invisible burden of secrecy. The letters also served as a fragile link to the outside world. They were vessels for hope, for advice, for small comforts, even for prayers quietly written, that the medicine might suffice, that the day might end in calm, that tomorrow might be a little gentler, even amidst the quiet persistence of dependency. And so, night after night, these letters became ritual, a private dialogue with silence itself, and with the unseen forces that governed the rhythm of daily life. In ink and paper, the women preserved their dignity, their struggles, their hopes, and their secrets. The epidemic, though unseen by the world outside, lived within these folds of paper, carried in each carefully chosen word, and echoed softly across time, a testament to endurance, to discretion, and to the quiet, relentless power of necessity. In the dimly lit streets of Victorian towns, where gas lamps flickered against the damp cobblestones, the apothecary held a quiet, almost sacred authority. Behind the polished counters, amidst bottles of glass and tins of herbs, a hidden world thrived, guided by the careful hands of those who understood both medicine and secrecy. Women approached these counters with soft footsteps, their heads bowed slightly, their hands trembling as they counted coins. Each visit was a delicate negotiation, a ritual of discretion, a whispered conversation that carried more weight than any public interaction could convey. Just a few more drops, they might murmur, or please ensure the last bottle is set aside. The apothecary, understanding the unspoken language, responded with quiet nods, measurements exact, the amber liquid transferred with care, all while eyes avoided the curious gaze of passers-by. These exchanges were more than commerce. They were a contract of trust, a silent acknowledgement of need and necessity. The apothecary knew that the medicine, while soothing, was also binding, and that each spoonful carried with it a quiet, unspoken consequence. The women left with their vials carefully tucked away, their steps measured, their thoughts occupied with both relief and apprehension. They returned to homes that maintained an exterior of order, to households where the rhythm of duty continued uninterrupted, even as the shadow of dependency quietly threaded itself through every room. Some apothecaries, moved by sympathy or routine familiarity, offered guidance in hushed tones, counseling moderation or subtle restraint, though rarely could they challenge the societal expectations that perpetuated the need. Others were indifferent, bound by business or custom, content to provide what was requested, profiting from the very necessity they observed. Imagine the quiet anticipation on a mother's face, the gentle easing of tension as the tincture touches her lips, and then, moments later, the same careful administration to her child. The apothecary's knowledge, though never spoken aloud beyond the counter, enabled these hidden cycles to continue, as invisible as the night itself. And so, the apothecary became both ally and silent witness, their counters serving as gateways to relief and, unknowingly, to dependence. Every transaction was a thread, weaving together the private struggles of women, the quiet complicity of servants, and the unseen mechanisms of a society bound by propriety, secrecy, and expectation. Through these whispered encounters, the epidemic persisted, moving silently through homes and hearts, measured in drops, counted in coins, and carried forward in the hush of countless, unseen moments. In the quiet corners of the household, the children watched, not with judgment, but with a keen awareness born of necessity. They noticed the subtle tremor in a mother's hand, the careful way she hid a bottle in a drawer, the soft sigh that escaped her lips when she thought no one was watching. Their small minds absorbed patterns, learning the language of secrecy long before they understood the words themselves. Imagine a child playing near the fireplace, their gaze drawn occasionally to the gentle movements of their mother, to the ritual that had become a rhythm in the household. They did not yet understand the amber liquid, nor the quiet power it held over her body and spirit. Yet, even at this young age, they sensed its importance, its necessity, its presence woven into the fabric of daily life. Servants, too, were attuned to these rhythms, guiding the children gently, ensuring they did not disturb the delicate pattern, teaching them without teaching, so that the household could continue its outward show of order. The children learned, without knowing it, how to navigate the quiet tension of the home. They observed the masks worn, the smiles offered, the polite conversations that masked hidden struggles. They became witnesses to a world where need was silent, where survival required discretion, and where love often carried a shadow of dependence. Even in play, the children mirrored what they saw. Soft voices, careful gestures, an unspoken etiquette of movement. They learned patience, subtlety, and the unspoken rules of observation that would shape their understanding of human behavior for years to come. And in the night, when the household was quiet, when the lamps flickered softly against the drawn curtains, the children slept beside their parents, unaware of the intricate dance that had carried them through another day, yet deeply marked by the rhythms of secrecy and survival. The epidemic, though invisible to the world beyond the walls, cast its subtle influence across generations, teaching lessons of vigilance, of adaptation, and of the delicate, unspoken ways in which survival sometimes required compromise. Through the children's eyes, we glimpse the quiet endurance of the household, the resilience of women bound by expectation and desire, and the silent, persistent presence of a hidden epidemic that would shape lives in ways both seen and unseen, echoing softly through time. Within the walls of the household, there existed a quiet complicity, a web of understanding and unspoken agreements that allowed the rhythms of dependency to persist. Servants, mothers, and sometimes even fathers moved with careful precision, their actions guided by an invisible script. that ensured the household's delicate equilibrium. They observed without judgment, assisted without question, and in doing so, became silent guardians of the epidemic. Consider the maid tiptoeing through the hall, her hands steady as she passes the apothecary's vial, her gaze attentive to every subtle signal, ensuring that the mistress's needs are met. Without a word or a whisper to the outside world, she knows the value of discretion, the necessity of silence, and the weight of trust that accompanies these quiet acts. Even the patriarchs of the home, often unaware of the depth of dependence, nevertheless upheld the social structures that allowed it to flourish. They demanded composure, expected propriety, and inadvertently created the conditions under which secrecy thrived. The women themselves were acutely aware of this complicity. They understood that survival required negotiation, not confrontation, discretion, not disclosure. They moved through rooms with subtle gestures, softly orchestrating the household's compliance, while preserving the fragile dignity of their own struggle. Each act of assistance, each quiet cooperation, was a thread in the fabric of endurance. Together, the household became a silent ecosystem, where dependency, secrecy, and survival coexisted. In a delicate balance, invisible to those beyond the walls, yet profoundly shaping every interaction within. And the impact extended further than mere concealment. It shaped behaviors, molded routines, and instilled in every member a nuanced understanding of the fragile interplay between need and propriety. The epidemic was no longer confined to the individual. It had become a collective rhythm, a quiet force woven into the life of the home, sustained by loyalty, necessity, and unspoken understanding. In these moments of quiet complicity, the household endured. It endured the pressures of society, the demands of propriety, and the relentless pull of dependency. And in that endurance, in the careful maintenance of appearances, lay a strength both hidden and profound, a testament to the resilience of those who lived in the shadows of a gentle, persistent epidemic. Even in the best-kept households, the shadows of health were never fully visible, never fully understood. Women who appeared composed, whose cheeks glowed with the gentle flush of propriety, often carried unseen burdens, their vitality quietly sapped by the relentless demands of body and mind. The opium tinctures, prescribed with confidence and care, offered a fleeting solace, a gentle easing of aches, pains, and the invisible weight of expectation. But with every dose, the line between relief and dependence blurred, and the shadows of health lengthened. Imagine a woman seated at her dressing table, mirror reflecting a face that seems composed, serene, while her fingers tremble slightly as they reach for the bottle. The relief she feels is immediate, yet it comes with the whisper of consequence, the gentle echo of a dependency that deepens with each careful measure. Medical advice, though offered in good faith, was often flawed. Doctors prescribed what was considered safe, guided by contemporary knowledge and societal norms, yet unaware of the subtle erosion occurring within the bodies they sought to heal. Rest cures, quiet seclusion, and measured doses of opium were intended to restore, yet often intensified the very shadows they aimed to dispel. The household itself became attuned to these rhythms. Rooms were arranged to allow privacy, visits were timed to avoid intrusion, and servants moved with care, ensuring that the fragile balance of health and dependency remained undisturbed. Children, ever perceptive, sensed the tension. They learned that wellness was sometimes a performance, that strength and composure were carefully orchestrated, and that behind the polished surfaces of furniture and manners, the body and mind could struggle in silence. And so, the shadows of health grew quietly, interwoven with the daily rituals, the hidden consumption, and the subtle dance of secrecy and care. They shaped not only the lives of the women themselves, but also the rhythm of the household, the interactions of servants, and the subtle expectations of children who watched and learned. In this delicate interplay, the epidemic found fertile ground. thriving not in scandal or recognition, but in the quiet erosion of vitality, the hidden costs of comfort, and the invisible consequences of medicine, expectation, and secrecy within the polished walls of their homes. Women often found themselves in quiet isolation, even as they moved among family, servants, and acquaintances. The secret of dependency created a subtle barrier, an invisible line that separated the visible from the hidden, the public self from the private struggle. They conversed politely in parlors, answered questions with a composed smile, and participated in social routines with practiced grace. Yet behind closed doors, in the soft solitude of a bedroom or behind a heavy curtain, they experienced a solitude that was entirely their own. This isolation was not always imposed, nor entirely voluntary. It emerged naturally from the intricate web of secrecy, from the need to conceal discomfort, from the careful choreography of appearances. Even those closest in the household, servants, children, husbands, often could not fully penetrate the quiet shadow that dependency cast. During these solitary moments, women confronted both the relief and the burden of the medicine. Each dose offered calm, each moment of respite a brief reprieve from the relentless expectations of society. But every sip also carried the whisper of consequence, the gentle echo of dependency, a reminder that freedom and comfort were always intertwined with obligation and secrecy. The isolation created a strange, reflective space. In the hush of candlelight or lamplight, thoughts turned inward, observations sharpened, and the mind wandered through the contours of memory and expectation. They contemplated their roles as mothers, daughters, wives, and household stewards, all while negotiating the private rhythms of their own needs. Even in the company of others, the solitude persisted. A smile could mask anxiety, a polite conversation could hide trembling hands, and a measured step could conceal the slow, quiet toll of dependency. Isolation was woven into daily life, a companion as constant and intimate as the medicine itself. Yet in this quiet solitude, there was also a kind of strength. Women learned patience, resilience, and the subtle art of self-preservation. They navigated a world that offered little understanding, protecting both themselves and the delicate fabric of household life, all while maintaining a dignity that went unseen by those beyond the walls. And so, the epidemic persisted in silence, carried forward not only in substance, but in the quiet isolation it imposed, shaping thought, behavior, and emotion, quietly guiding the rhythm of days and nights, and embedding itself within the very structure of the home. In the world beyond the home, Victorian society prized politeness above all else. A soft word, a measured gesture, the appearance of calm composure, these were the markers of respectability, the armor that women wore daily. For those carrying the secret weight of dependency, this veil of politeness became both shield and mask. It allowed them to navigate society without revealing the tremors beneath the surface, the quiet anxieties that accompanied each dose of opium, and the subtle exhaustion that threatened to betray their composure. A visit to a neighbor's drawing room required careful calculation. Conversations were brief, laughter controlled, eyes brightened with effort. Not a single quiver of the hand, not a hint of the inner turmoil, could be allowed to disrupt the illusion. Even the simplest interactions demanded vigilance. A handshake, a nod, a passing smile, all could carry inadvertent messages, and all had to be managed with deliberate care. The social mask was more than etiquette, it was survival. Letters sent and received reinforced this veil. Every word chosen with thought, every phrase polished for propriety, allowed women to communicate without exposing the hidden truth. They spoke in code, not consciously, but through the subtle art of suggestion and omission, crafting sentences that conveyed concern, affection, or ordinary updates, while concealing the quiet necessity of the medicine that sustained them. Servants, ever observant, learned the rhythm of this social veil. They understood the importance of timing, the necessity of discretion, and the delicate balance required to maintain appearances. They moved quietly, performing small tasks without comment, enabling the household to present its polished front to the outside world. Yet beneath this calm exterior, a complex tension lingered. The veil of politeness concealed not only dependency, but the emotional and physical toll it exacted. It hid fatigue, anxiety, and the quiet ache of repeated reliance, creating a layered existence, 1 foot in public propriety, 1 foot in private struggle. And so, day after day, the veil of politeness held firm, allowing women to exist in dual realities, to participate in society, to preserve family honor, and to protect themselves from scrutiny. It was a delicate, unspoken agreement with the world, an essential instrument of survival, and a subtle reflection of the invisible epidemic threading through every home. As dusk deepens and gas lamps cast a golden glow upon cobblestone streets, some women took to evening walks, a private ritual under the veil of twilight. The cool air brushed gently against their faces, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and distant smoke, offering a momentary escape from the confines of home, from the quiet tension that lingered in parlors and bedrooms alike. These walks were more than leisure. They were an opportunity for reflection, for observation, for feeling the world move beyond the invisible boundaries of dependency. The streets were quieter at this hour, passers-by fewer, the shadows deeper and more forgiving, allowing women a small measure of freedom and anonymity. Footsteps echoed softly against the stones, a rhythmic companion to the quiet beating of a heart attuned to both fear and relief. The body, accustomed to the subtle influence of opium, moved with a grace that belied the reliance hidden within. Each step carried a duality, the public image of composure, and the private acknowledgement of the necessity that guided every movement. Some women carried parasols, not only to shield from evening drizzle, but as instruments of propriety, maintaining their social presence even in solitude. Their thoughts wandered, to children tucked safely in bed, to letters sent or awaiting reply, to the subtle choreography of secrecy maintained throughout the day. Servants observed discreetly from a distance, knowing the rhythm and duration of these walks, ensuring nothing interrupted the delicate balance of household life. Even the smallest gesture, turning a corner, pausing to inhale deeply, adjusting a glove, was part of a larger, silent dance that preserved appearances while granting a fleeting sense of liberation. The evening walk was also a meditation, a chance to consider the passage of time, the cycles of dependence and relief, and the intricate interplay of personal need and societal expectation. Each inhalation of night air was a small ritual of grounding. Each shadow encountered a mirror of the quiet endurance required to live fully within the confines of propriety. And so, under the twilight sky, the women walked, moving through streets that seemed to hold their secrets gently, their steps a meditation, their shadows companions, their hearts quietly navigating the delicate tension between freedom and necessity. In these solitary passages, the epidemic remained unseen, its influence persistent yet discreet, threading quietly through the streets and through lives, a hidden rhythm beneath the surface of the world. Behind closed doors, in the quiet corners of well-kept parlors and bedrooms, the women engaged in hidden rituals that bridged necessity and secrecy, survival and longing. These moments were private, timed with precision, their movements practiced and deliberate. Each gesture, each measured pour, was an act performed in the soft glow of candlelight, shielded from the eyes of servants, children, and visiting acquaintances. Consider the quiet arrangement of a dressing table, bottles aligned with care, spoons set aside, linen folded meticulously, all to preserve an air of propriety while ensuring immediate access to the remedy that comforted, soothed, and bound the body in quiet dependence. The rituals were meditative, a rhythm that shaped both body and mind. The hand reached for the amber liquid with confidence, the lips parted, the familiar warmth spread, and for a moment, tension eased. as though the world itself had paused to grant reprieve. Yet beneath the surface, the subtle cost of each repetition remained. Every act was both relief and reminder, a balance between comfort and constraint, a silent acknowledgement that freedom was always contingent, that dependency had become a companion both intimate and persistent. Servants, though sometimes unaware of the full significance, observed these rituals with practiced discretion. They learned the hours, the angles of light, the subtleties of placement, moving through their duties in harmony with these quiet practices, ensuring the household ran smoothly while preserving the fragile privacy of need. The rituals were not merely physical, they were emotional too. They offered solace, a small domain of control in a world defined by expectation, a whispered assurance that, despite societal pressures and moral scrutiny, the body and mind could be momentarily soothed, that the invisible currents of the day could be quieted, and that endurance remained possible. And in these hidden practices, the rhythm of dependency intertwined seamlessly with the rhythm of daily life. They were the quiet heartbeat of the home, an unspoken acknowledgement that survival often required subtle, invisible measures, and that dignity could coexist with necessity, even when both were cloaked in secrecy. Thus, the epidemic endured, its presence concealed not by denial alone, but by ritual, precision, and the unspoken bonds of understanding that wove through every household, shaping lives with the gentle, persistent rhythm of quiet necessity. In the intricate dance of daily life, gentle deceptions became an essential art. Women, bound by propriety and expectation, navigated their homes with measured steps, masking their private needs behind smiles, pleasantries, and routine. A visitor's inquiry about health, or a friend's casual remark about exhaustion, required careful responses, phrases softened, meanings veiled, truths rearranged just enough to protect both self and household. Every word, every gesture, was a thread in a tapestry of quiet concealment. Even within families, these deceptions were delicate. Children noticed absences, sudden naps, or moments of distraction. Yet explanations were offered with calm assurance, a carefully constructed narrative that preserved dignity and decorum. The servants, too, played their part, relaying instructions with subtlety, shielding their mistress from intrusion while maintaining household order. The act of deception was not born of malice, but necessity. It created space for survival, a private corridor through which relief could pass undisturbed, and a buffer between dependency and the moral scrutiny of society. Each concealment, each understated gesture, was a testament to ingenuity, patience, and resilience. In the quiet of the evening, women reflected on these gentle deceptions. They understood the fragile balance they maintained, the interplay between need and appearance, and the small victories that came from preserving composure in a world that offered little understanding. There was power in subtlety, and even as dependency persisted, these small acts affirmed control, however temporary or limited it might be. And so, the epidemic of reliance continued quietly, woven into the fabric of domestic life, supported by acts of discretion, and safeguarded by the delicate artistry of unspoken understanding. In these moments, the home became both sanctuary and stage, a place where private struggles could exist unseen, yet guided by the gentle hand of resourcefulness, and the enduring need for dignity amidst quiet necessity. The women who mastered this art of gentle deception carried forward not only their own survival, but the rhythm of household life, ensuring that the hidden currents of need remained contained, measured, and discreet, softly echoing through each passing day. In the age of handwritten letters and quiet postal exchanges, women often relied on secret correspondence to maintain their private worlds. Ink met paper in carefully chosen words, phrases polished to perfection, meanings veiled in the safety of nuance. A letter sent to a distant friend, or received from a sympathetic confidant, offered a fleeting intimacy, a bridge across the isolation imposed by propriety and secrecy. Within each carefully constructed line, lurked acknowledgement, support, and understanding that could not be spoken aloud in the public sphere. Imagine the soft scratching of quill on parchment, candlelight flickering against the page, the deliberate folding of the sheet, and the quiet hope that the recipient would read between the lines, understand the hidden messages, and preserve the fragile secret that accompanied each word. These correspondences served multiple purposes. They conveyed genuine emotion, offered guidance, and, above all, protected privacy. Within their folds lay discussions of remedies, subtle advice on managing dependency, and shared strategies for navigating the delicate expectations of society. Yet even in writing, the veil of discretion remained, ensuring that curiosity, judgment, or gossip could never breach the safety of the message. The children, often unaware, watched their mothers or aunts prepare these letters with meticulous care. They absorbed lessons in subtlety, learning that communication could carry layers of meaning, that the truth could be protected while still being shared, and that survival often depended on the art of measured expression. Servants, too, were involved in this delicate process. They handled letters with discretion, delivering them at precise times, ensuring that privacy was maintained, and that the household's delicate balance of secrecy and propriety was preserved. In this quiet world of ink and paper, the epidemic endured, its presence unspoken yet acknowledged, woven into the daily fabric of life, and preserved through the soft rhythm of correspondence, each letter a testament to resilience, care, and the quiet endurance of women living within the constraints of their era. Through these letters, a network of empathy and understanding persisted, silent yet potent, allowing women to navigate the shadows of dependency, maintain dignity, and sustain the delicate balance of home, family, and society. As evening deepened and the world outside slowed its pace, women retreated to their bedrooms, preparing for the ritual of rest, a practice as carefully structured as any household task, and as intimately tied to the rhythms of dependency. The bedroom was arranged with meticulous care. Soft linens smoothed, curtains drawn to shield from prying eyes, lamps or candles placed to offer gentle illumination, creating an atmosphere both serene and protective. Here, away from the gaze of the world, the body and mind could begin the delicate transition from tension to repose. The ritual began with small gestures, a slow removal of gloves, the careful folding of garments, the placement of a bottle or vial within reach, a measured sip if the body demanded it, all performed with quiet reverence, as though acknowledging the delicate balance between comfort and necessity. Women allowed themselves to breathe, to feel the warmth of a blanket, to sink into the soft embrace of bed linens, and to listen to the subtle whispers of their own bodies. The medication, once taken, spread warmth and calm, soothing both aches and anxieties, creating a temporary harmony between the demands of life and the needs of the body. Yet the ritual of rest was more than physical, it was deeply psychological. It was a moment of private reflection, a meditation on endurance, on the small victories of the day, and on the persistent pressures that tomorrow would bring. The mind wandered through memories and hopes, sometimes circling anxieties, sometimes finding solace in the predictable rhythm of household life. Servants understood this nightly ritual too. They moved quietly in adjacent rooms, ensuring that the household's balance remained undisturbed, watching without watching, and maintaining the protective cocoon in which the women could rest. In these moments, the epidemic remained invisible, its presence acknowledged only in subtle gestures and quiet awareness. Yet even in rest, its influence persisted, a gentle, lingering rhythm that shaped sleep, dreams, and the subtle continuity of the following day. And so, the ritual of rest became both a sanctuary and a conduit, a space where dependency, necessity, and resilience intertwined, allowing women to endure, to survive, and to maintain the delicate, unspoken balance of their private worlds. When the household grew quiet, and the last footsteps of servants faded down the hall, the night became a companion, an intimate witness to both endurance and secrecy. In these silent hours, women lay in stillness, listening to the gentle cadence of the world beyond their walls. The distant clatter of carriages on cobblestones, the soft rustle of leaves in evening breezes, and the occasional murmur of a neighboring household blended into a lullaby that was uniquely theirs. The opium, taken with care during the ritual of rest, spread a gentle warmth through body and mind. Muscles unclenched, the heart slowed, and a temporary calm softened the edges of anxiety and expectation. Sleep, when it came, was a fragile visitor, welcomed in quiet gratitude, yet shadowed by the persistent undercurrent of dependence. The women were acutely aware of their solitude, not as loneliness alone, but as a reflection of a life carefully veiled from view. Each sigh, each shift beneath the covers, was a private acknowledgement of both vulnerability and resilience, of the quiet compromises made in the name of propriety. Children in adjoining rooms dreamed their own dreams, often unaware of the subtle currents of dependency threading through the household. Yet even their innocence was shaped by the rhythms of care, by the measured footsteps, the whispered instructions, and the gentle yet persistent influence of the epidemic in every room. Servants too, though perhaps less conscious of the emotional weight, moved with vigilance, closing shutters, dousing lamps, ensuring the tranquility of the night remained uninterrupted. They were guardians of privacy, protectors of a delicate balance that allowed women to navigate dependency without exposure or shame. The silent nights carried lessons of endurance. They taught patience, the rhythm of breath, the quiet understanding that life's pressures could be softened, even temporarily, by the careful orchestration of routine, discretion, and self-care. And as the hours passed, the night held them gently, sheltered their secrets, and allowed the body and mind to recover just enough to face another day, another cycle of expectation, relief, and careful concealment. In these silent nights, the epidemic existed not as scandal or accusation, but as a quiet, persistent companion, interwoven with the very fabric of domestic life, softly shaping both the days and the dreams of those it touched. As dawn stretched its pale fingers across the horizon, the household stirred with gentle precision. Curtains were drawn back, lamps extinguished, and the first light of morning touched polished wood and soft linens. For the women who had navigated the long, silent night, the morning awakening was a subtle negotiation. Bodies moved carefully, senses alert to both relief and lingering tension, each breath measured, each movement a quiet balance between duty and necessity. The opium's influence lingered, its warmth easing the stiffness of waking muscles, its calmness smoothing the edges of worry, and its shadow a silent reminder of the cycles that had begun anew. Breakfast was prepared and consumed with ritualized care, a performance that required composure, yet allowed for the quiet presence of recovery and readiness. Children awoke to soft murmurs, to the gentle touch of hands brushing hair from sleepy faces, to the careful coordination of garments and breakfasts. They learned, without realizing, that mornings were orchestrated, that routine was both protection and performance, and that the world outside remained unchanged by the quiet struggles within. Servants moved with practiced attentiveness, pouring tea, arranging fresh flowers, ensuring that the day's rhythm flowed smoothly, and that the delicate equilibrium of secrecy, propriety, and care was maintained. Even as duties began, writing letters, overseeing household accounts, attending to social engagements, women carried with them the lingering effects of the night, the subtle warmth and sedation that enabled endurance, the private solace that allowed them to meet expectations with grace. And in these moments of morning awakening, the world remained unaware of the hidden epidemics that shaped lives behind closed doors. Dependency persisted quietly, woven into the very fabric of day-to-day existence, a gentle but constant reminder of the unseen burdens borne with dignity, the secret companions that accompanied each movement, and the soft resilience that carried women through the demands of a rigid and observing society. The morning light, though revealing and clarifying, could not penetrate the full depth of the private world, where dependency, ritual, and careful discretion intertwined to create a rhythm both sustaining and fragile, a hidden pulse beneath the surface of everyday life. In the parlors and drawing rooms of Victorian households, appearances reigned supreme. Every gesture, every smile, every nod was carefully curated to reflect grace, composure, and propriety. For women carrying the invisible weight of dependency, these social illusions were a complex performance. Conversations flowed smoothly, laughter punctuated polite exchanges, and the subtle art of charm masked the hidden tremors beneath the surface. Visiting friends, relatives, and acquaintances remained largely unaware of the quiet epidemics threading through the home. Opium dependency was never discussed openly, its presence acknowledged only in whispered advice, subtle glances, or letters carried discreetly between trusted confidants. The women mastered a delicate equilibrium. Each interaction required measured words, controlled expressions, and careful pacing. Even a casual question about health or fatigue demanded a response that maintained dignity, while concealing the truth of ongoing need. Servants understood these expectations well. They moved silently, adjusting furniture, serving tea, ensuring that the household's facade remained uninterrupted. Their discretion allowed the women to navigate social rituals without revealing the private realities that defined their days. Yet, behind the veil of propriety, complex emotions quietly unfolded. A sigh beneath a parasol, the pause before speaking, a hidden tremor of the hand. All were subtle reminders of the ongoing struggle and of the resilience required to preserve both reputation and self. These social illusions were not solely for the benefit of others. They were acts of survival, tools that allowed women to maintain autonomy, to protect family honor, and to negotiate the strict codes of Victorian society. In the quiet reflection after such gatherings, women often contemplated the contrast between appearance and reality. They understood that the epidemic shaped not only their private worlds, but also the intricate dance of social interaction, teaching them the delicate, quiet art of navigating visibility and concealment, and reinforcing the enduring interplay between necessity, discretion, and grace. Thus, the epidemic persisted silently, woven into both the visible and hidden layers of daily life, its influence undetected by the casual observer, yet profoundly shaping the rhythm, perception, and endurance of those it touched. Within the quiet sanctum of a household library, surrounded by shelves of leather-bound volumes, women found a refuge from the pressures and expectations of daily life. Here, words became companions, and pages held a quiet promise of understanding, an escape from the constant vigilance that marked each step in society. The library was both sanctuary and stage. Women moved silently between shelves, fingers grazing spines as if to absorb not just knowledge, but the calm and stability these objects symbolized. A soft chair by the window invited long hours of contemplation, where light fell gently on open pages, and the world outside seemed distant, manageable, almost still. Books offered more than distraction, they provided insight. Medical treatises, novels, poetry, and memoirs all contained coded reflections of human struggle, endurance, and desire. Women recognized parallels between their own lives and the characters inhabiting these texts, finding solace in shared experience and learning strategies, subtle or symbolic, for navigating constraint. Opium's gentle warmth lingered as they read, softening tension, smoothing aches, allowing focus and reflection. The dual presence of knowledge and medication created a private rhythm, a sanctuary where mind and body aligned, if only briefly in a quiet harmony. Servants respected this ritual. They knew to avoid the room, to move silently elsewhere, to leave the householder undisturbed in her private communion with literature, as though the very walls recognized the necessity of these hours. Even the selection of reading material was deliberate. novels depicting virtuous women enduring hardship, poems reflecting longing or quiet rebellion, and medical manuals hinting at remedies and secret techniques. All offered a framework for understanding and surviving. Within the rigid confines of Victorian expectation, time flowed differently here. Minutes stretched into hours, and for a brief interlude, the epidemic, the dependency, and the ceaseless vigilance of society faded into the background. Within these pages, women found quiet strategies, empathy, and reflection, a soft dialogue between mind and heart that both soothed and sustained them. And when the book was finally closed, the world returned, but the library had left its imprint, a reservoir of calm, a private space for thought and endurance, and a reminder that within the strict boundaries of daily life, small sanctuaries of reflection could preserve dignity, strength, and the quiet rhythm of survival. Beyond the walls of the house, through heavy doors and quiet halls, lay the gardens, verdant, fragrant, and secret. Here, women sought refuge among roses, lavender, and the gentle rustle of leaves, where the world's expectations softened beneath the weight of nature's quiet authority. The garden was a sanctuary of sound and scent. Birdsong drifted across manicured paths, and petals, brushed by a soft breeze, released their subtle perfumes, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp soil and sun-warmed stone. Each step along a winding path became a meditation, each inhale a reminder of vitality beyond constraint, each exhale a small release from the persistent demands of propriety. Here, women could walk unobserved, their movements measured, unhurried, hands occasionally brushing against leaves, fingers tracing the delicate veins of flowers, as if absorbing strength and calm from their gentle touch. Opium's warmth still lingered in their veins, but the garden offered a different comfort, one rooted in natural rhythm rather than chemical influence. It was a companion that reminded them of cycles, growth, and quiet resilience, of renewal that existed beyond walls, whispers, or hidden bottles. Children sometimes wandered nearby, learning to recognize the rhythms of sunlight and shadow, to notice how water pooled in the stone troughs, to hear the subtle music of leaves swaying against each other. Without knowing, they absorbed lessons in patience, observation, and endurance, mirroring the quiet practices of the women who guided their days. Servants tended the garden with careful diligence, pruning, watering, and weeding, ensuring both beauty and order were maintained. They moved unobtrusively, aware that the garden was not merely a space of aesthetic pleasure, but a living sanctuary for quiet reflection, where dependency, stress, and expectation could coexist in measured balance. The garden whispered in ways that the house never could. It reminded women of the continuity of life, of growth, decay, and regeneration, and of the persistent, gentle rhythm of existence that carried on despite hidden struggles, concealed suffering, and the silent epidemic threading through everyday routines. In the embrace of green shadows and sun-dappled paths, women found solace, their steps a soft meditation, their breath a quiet reflection, and the garden's whispers a companion for endurance, strength, and the delicate preservation of self amidst the demands of a watchful society. As the day unfolded and sunlight filled the rooms with gentle warmth, women sought moments of quiet respite, interludes between domestic duties, social visits, and the unrelenting demands of expectation. These afternoons were carefully carved out, sometimes in the soft embrace of a chaise lounge, sometimes in the hush of a secluded parlor, where the distant hum of life beyond the walls felt muted, and the mind could breathe freely. During these hours, opium's lingering effects softened both body and thought, creating a subtle buffer against fatigue, worry, and the pressures of propriety. Every gesture was slow, deliberate, a measured sip of tea, the turning of a book page, a quiet reflection on events past or anticipated. Women used this time to plan, to reflect, to consider the delicate balance between appearance and necessity, between duty and self-care. It was a private meditation, an interlude that allowed the rhythms of dependency to coexist with the rituals of daily life. A momentary alignment of body, mind, and circumstance. Servants moved quietly in adjacent rooms, aware of the need for undisturbed space, tending to meals or laundry without intrusion, ensuring that the household continued its outward appearance of order and serenity. Even social calls were filtered through the lens of these afternoon respites. A hostess might greet a visitor with calm composure, concealing tiredness, anxiety, or the traces of medication taken hours before, transforming routine interactions into carefully choreographed performances. Children, too, became attuned to this rhythm. They learned the patterns of pause and movement, the quiet signals that indicated when to speak, when to remain still, and when the world outside the household could wait for their presence and attention. These afternoons, though seemingly ordinary, were deeply significant. They were the invisible seams in the fabric of the day, where endurance, reflection, and discreet reliance converged, allowing women to maintain both dignity and function, even in the shadow of an epidemic that remained largely unseen, yet profoundly influential. And when the afternoon waned into the gentle approach of evening, these moments of quiet fortitude left traces, a subtle strength, a soft composure, a measured readiness to meet the demands of night, and the continuation of the carefully hidden patterns that defined their daily lives. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the parlor floors, women entered a period of quiet reflection, a time when the day's routine softened, and the subtle weight of private struggles came to the forefront. Evening brought a slowing of the household, a dimming of light, and the faint creak of floorboards as servants completed their final tasks. Within this tranquility, the mind wandered gently through memories, aspirations, and hidden anxieties. Each reflection was layered, joy and sorrow intertwined, hope and caution mingled, and the reality of dependency hovered quietly beneath the surface. Opium's warmth lingered, its soothing effect a companion to contemplation. Muscles relaxed, breaths deepened, and the mind, while still alert to responsibility, drifted softly through thoughts both personal and universal. These moments of evening reflection were not idle. They were necessary, providing a pause in which women could reconcile the demands of social expectation with the needs of body and mind. Every small victory, composure maintained, secrecy preserved, duties fulfilled, was quietly acknowledged, a subtle affirmation of resilience in the face of relentless pressures. Children often retired early, leaving women alone with their thoughts, or sometimes gathered nearby, observing and learning the gentle rhythms of evening ritual, absorbing lessons in subtlety, discretion, and endurance. Even the domestic environment seemed to acknowledge this hour. Furniture arranged with precision, lamps casting gentle pools of light, and curtains drawn to protect privacy, all created a cocoon of calm, an intimate arena in which contemplation and quiet recovery could unfold. In these reflections, the epidemic, though invisible to the outside world, was ever present, not in loud suffering or overt struggle, but as a constant undercurrent shaping thought, habit, and daily rhythm. Women contemplated their own strength, their ingenuity, and the quiet strategies they had honed over time, realizing that survival was an art, one practiced in silence, discretion, and measured care. Evening reflections became a bridge between day and night, a liminal space in which dependency, duty, and dignity intertwined, and where women prepared both mind and body to face the cycles of tomorrow, carrying forward a quiet resilience that defined the rhythm of their lives and the hidden contours of an unseen epidemic that shaped each passing hour. Within the quiet corners of Victorian homes, women carved out spaces that belonged entirely to themselves. These private sanctuaries, small chambers, hidden alcoves, or secluded nooks, offered relief from observation, expectation, and the ever-watchful eyes of propriety. Here, time moved differently. A chair drawn close to a window, the soft glow of candlelight illuminating familiar objects, and the gentle rustle of curtains in the evening breeze combined to create an atmosphere of calm, reflection, and introspection. In these sanctuaries, women could engage in small, deliberate rituals. The cup of tea sipped slowly, the turning of book pages, the careful organization of letters, and the measured administration of medication all became acts of mindfulness, allowing a brief alignment of body, mind, and spirit. Opium, when taken in these quiet spaces, offered more than relief from physical discomfort. It provided a temporary veil, softening the sharp edges of worry, fatigue, and social expectation. Yet even as it soothed, it reminded women of the delicate balance between dependence and autonomy, between necessity and restraint. Servants understood the sanctity of these spaces. They moved quietly, unseen and unobtrusive, tending to household needs elsewhere, ensuring that the rhythm of domestic life continued uninterrupted, while women maintained control of their private moments. Children, if present, respected the boundaries of these sanctuaries, absorbing lessons in discretion, patience, and subtle awareness. Even in their innocence, they learned that survival within the household required observation, tact, and an understanding of private versus public life. These sanctuaries were more than refuges, they were arenas of quiet strategy. Here, women could reflect on the delicate management of dependency, on the preservation of social reputation, and on the small victories that defined each day. Every moment spent in this private space fortified resilience, calmed anxiety, and nurtured the endurance necessary for the long cycles of household life. And so, these hidden corners became vital, offering both physical and emotional respite, a soft space where women could navigate the demands of society, the constraints of dependency, and the quiet, persistent challenges of an unseen epidemic, all while preserving dignity, composure, and the fragile serenity of self. As the household settled into the quietude of night, a profound solitude enveloped the rooms where women lingered. It was a solitude both imposed and chosen, a space in which the mind could roam freely, yet always with a gentle awareness of the invisible currents that shaped daily life. In this hour, thoughts flowed slowly, like the faint flicker of candlelight across polished wood. Women reflected on the day's accomplishments, the careful maintenance of appearances, the small successes and compromises that defined each interaction. There was a softness to these reflections, a private understanding that endurance itself was an achievement. Opium, when taken with quiet ritual, added a gentle warmth to these moments of introspection. Muscles relaxed, breath deepened, and the mind, softened by medication, traced familiar paths through memory, hope, and gentle worry. The line between relief and reliance blurred, yet it was navigated with practiced awareness, an intimate choreography between necessity and discretion. Servants moved silently in the shadows, closing shutters, adjusting lamps, ensuring that the household remained undisturbed, allowing women the precious gift of uninterrupted reflection. Even the smallest sounds, a door closing, a whispered instruction, the faint ticking of a clock, became part of the rhythm of this nightly solitude. Children, tucked away in their beds, dreamed softly, unaware of the delicate negotiations taking place in the rooms beyond. Yet their presence or absence shaped the experience, reinforcing the quiet, measured nature of adult ritual and responsibility. These evenings were not idle. They were moments of profound preparation. Within solitude, women nurtured resilience, reinforced strategies of endurance, and quietly reconciled the ongoing influence of dependency with the expectations of society and self. The evening solitude, gentle yet persistent, carried a double meaning. It was both a sanctuary and a reminder, a space where reflection met necessity, where secrecy intertwined with dignity, and where the invisible currents of an unseen epidemic were both acknowledged and endured with quiet grace. As night deepened, a single candle often flickered against the walls, casting shadows that danced slowly and transforming the familiar room into a realm of soft mystery. Women, seated or reclining, allowed themselves to pause and reflect, their thoughts tracing the contours of the day, its small triumphs and subtle frustrations, and the quiet persistence of the dependencies that lingered beneath the surface. The candlelight offered both warmth and clarity, its gentle illumination revealing objects of comfort, a cherished book, a folded letter, a keepsake from another time. These tangible companions created a dialogue with memory, connecting present reflection with the tapestry of past experiences. Opium, taken with ritual care, softened the edges of fatigue, its presence a quiet companion in these solitary hours. The warmth it brought was subtle, mingling with the candle's glow, allowing for an intimate conversation between body and mind, a quiet negotiation of relief and reliance. Servants, mindful of the household's rhythms, moved silently elsewhere, their presence felt only in the careful maintenance of shadows, ensuring that the women's solitude remained uninterrupted, a cocoon of private reflection that the outside world could not penetrate. In this quiet vigil, thoughts wandered to children, to family, to the broader society beyond the walls, and to the subtle complexities of a life constrained by social expectation and the hidden influence of dependence. Each sigh, each careful breath, was part of an unspoken ritual, an acknowledgement of both endurance and vulnerability. Even as the candle burned low, its soft light became a symbol of vigilance maintained, of secrets preserved, and of the quiet resilience that carried women through each day. Night after night, the candlelight vigil was more than a nightly habit. It was a sacred space for introspection, where memory, hope, and necessity converged, and where the invisible threads of an epidemic were confronted with quiet grace, dignity, and enduring strength. In the quiet hours of night, women often turned to letters, small pieces of paper that carried thoughts too fragile for spoken words, messages too delicate to risk being overheard. These secret correspondences served as lifelines, bridges between minds and hearts constrained by expectation, and whispers of solidarity that transcended the walls of household propriety. Pens moved carefully across the pages, ink forming lines that balanced honesty with discretion, vulnerability with guardedness, and confession with self-preservation. Opium's subtle warmth lingered in the veins, softening fatigue, easing worry, and allowing thoughts to flow more freely, creating a gentle rhythm between body, mind, and pen. Servants, moving silently in the halls, remained unaware of the clandestine communications being composed, yet their diligent maintenance of household order ensured the privacy necessary for letters to be written, folded, and hidden away, safe until their intended recipient could receive them. The letters themselves were more than mere words. They carried empathy, advice, and guidance, sharing stories of endurance and coping, describing remedies, both medicinal and emotional, and offering insights into navigating the complex terrain of dependency, social expectation, and personal dignity. Children sometimes glimpsed the careful movements of pen and paper, learning in small and subtle ways the quiet art of communication, the discipline of patience, and the importance of discretion in a world that judged quickly and harshly. Each correspondence, sealed and hidden, was a private act of resilience, a testament to the women's resourcefulness and courage, and a reminder that even within isolation and constraint, connection, understanding, and hope could still flourish. And as the night deepened, letters safely tucked away, women rested with a quiet satisfaction, knowing that they had maintained both secrecy and agency, and had reached beyond the boundaries of their household to touch minds and hearts in distant rooms, further fortifying the delicate, enduring rhythm of survival in the face of hidden epidemics. Day's darkness settled fully over the household. The world outside hushed into quiet slumber. Within the private chambers, women maintained a nighttime vigil, a soft, deliberate awareness of self, space, and circumstance. The night was both companion and mirror. Shadows stretched across walls, casting familiar objects in unfamiliar patterns, and the silence allowed for thoughts to surface that had been tempered or postponed during the day. Opium's lingering presence lent a gentle warmth, a softening of fatigue, a subtle companion to reflection and contemplation. It eased the tension of muscles and mind, and created a cushion for the vulnerabilities that could not be voiced in the light of day. During these hours, the body moved carefully, adjusting bedding, tending to minor discomforts, preparing both self and space for rest. Every gesture was slow, deliberate, a measured rhythm that balanced necessity with ritual. Servants, long finished with their duties, retreated entirely from view, leaving women to navigate the quiet landscape of their thoughts. Even the faintest sound, a floorboard's creak, a distant cough, was integrated into the delicate choreography of attention and awareness. Children, if still awake, lay quietly in their beds, absorbing without understanding the subtle lessons of endurance, discretion, and self-care that these nocturnal rituals imparted. The nighttime vigil was not merely an act of observation. It was an exercise in self-preservation, a way to reconcile the demands of duty, propriety, and social expectation with the private realities of dependency and endurance. It was here, in the quiet glow of moonlight or candlelight, that women confronted both the fragility and the strength of their existence, tracing the contours of life's constraints, while finding small reserves of resilience, dignity, and grace. And in this sacred, silent hour, as the night deepened and the world outside continued unknowing, the invisible epidemic remained present, yet controlled, managed, and endured, woven delicately into the private rhythms that defined each woman's passage through life, moment by quiet moment, breath by measured breath. Beneath the pale glow of moonlight, light poured softly through drawn curtains, painting gentle patterns across the floors and walls of quiet rooms. Women often found themselves drawn to these moments when the night carried a subtle clarity, and the mind could wander freely across memories, hopes, and hidden fears. The moonlight seemed to illuminate not just the room, but the inner landscape of thought. Reflections emerged slowly, layered with past experiences, the subtle weight of social expectation, and the quiet, persistent influence of dependency. Opium's gentle warmth coursed through the body, softening fatigue and tension, blurring edges without diminishing awareness, allowing contemplation to deepen into a rhythm of quiet understanding. In this state, small details of life, the curve of a hand, the softness of a fabric, the quiet echo of a remembered conversation, became poignant markers of both struggle and endurance. Servants remained unseen, their duties complete for the night, leaving the household's mistress alone with her thoughts. Even the faintest sounds, a distant carriage, a creaking shutter, the whisper of night wind, were integrated into a meditative awareness, reminders of the world beyond, yet safely separated from the intimate space of personal reflection. Children, tucked into beds, slept unaware of the delicate patterns of thought unfolding nearby, yet absorbing in subtle ways the quiet lessons of observation, patience, and endurance. In moonlit contemplation, women reconciled the dualities of their existence, the demands of society and the needs of the self, the visible composure and the invisible struggle, the silent epidemic shaping daily life and the private strategies of survival. These hours were sacred, not merely a pause before sleep, but a meditation in which resilience was nurtured, where dignity was maintained, and where the quiet, rhythmic presence of night offered both reflection and renewal. And as the moon traced its arc across the sky, women allowed themselves the soft comfort of this time, knowing that in the gentle glow, the mind, body, and spirit were momentarily aligned, ready to face the continuing cadence of life with measured grace. As the clock hands inched toward midnight, a profound stillness settled over the household, enveloping rooms, hallways, and quiet chambers alike. Women, in the privacy of their own spaces, embraced this late-night hour as a time for reflection, a moment to reconcile the day's duties with the unseen weight of their circumstances. The world outside slept, its noises faded to whispers, leaving only the subtle rhythm of breath, the gentle pulse of a heartbeat, and the faint rustle of fabric as women shifted in quiet contemplation. Opium's residual warmth lingered, softening tension in muscles and mind, creating a meditative state where thought could meander without urgency. Memories of kindness, fleeting joys, quiet triumphs, and small frustrations came to the surface, examined gently, acknowledged softly, without judgment, without rush. Servants had long retired, and the household existed in a temporary vacuum of oversight. This allowed women to navigate private thoughts freely, to examine fears and desires, and to consider strategies for endurance, secrecy, and dignity in the days to come. Children, tucked securely in beds, dreamed quietly, their slumber a soft punctuation to the rhythmic cycles of life in the household. Even in sleep, they were attuned to the subtleties of the domestic rhythm, learning lessons of patience, discretion, and resilience without spoken instruction. Late-night reflection became a ritual of quiet fortitude. Women reconciled the dual existence they navigated, the public appearance of composure and the private reality of dependency. Each thought traced the contours of endurance, each measured breath a reminder of self-preservation, and each quiet moment an affirmation of strength in secrecy. In these hours, the invisible threads of the Victorian epidemic remained present but manageable, woven carefully into private routines, softened by reflection and acknowledged with grace. The late-night reflection offered clarity, renewed resilience, and the subtle comfort of alignment, preparing body and mind to face tomorrow with composure, patience, and quiet strength. In the quiet solitude of her chamber, a woman often turned her attention to a small, hidden drawer. Nestled within a desk or behind a panel, a secret compartment carefully maintained for years. Inside lay small bottles, carefully labeled, notes of dosage and fragments of advice, all part of a clandestine world kept from the eyes of family, servants, and society. This hidden drawer was a sanctuary of control, a place where autonomy could exist in a life otherwise governed by expectation. The act of tending to this secret space was deliberate and slow. Fingers traced the edges of bottles, read notes carefully, and organized the contents with precision. Each movement carried both purpose and ritual, a meditation that allowed mind and body to align in a private cadence. Opium, though necessary for relief and endurance, was also a reminder of fragility. It demanded discretion, careful measurement, and an awareness of the delicate balance between necessity and dependency. The drawer, small and private, became a tactile guide to navigating that balance. Servants passed by without notice, moving silently through the house, unaware of the intimate choreography taking place behind closed doors. Even the faintest sound, floorboards, a shutter closing, a distant cough, was integrated into the rhythm of attention, a soft acknowledgement of vigilance in secrecy. Children, often curious but perceptive, remained unaware of the delicate negotiations occurring within these drawers. Yet, in their unconscious observation, they absorbed lessons in discretion, organization, and the careful management of private versus public life. The hidden drawer symbolized more than concealment. It represented resilience, strategy, and self-preservation. It was a repository of knowledge, routine, and ritual, a small world where control could be exercised, amid the currents of dependency and expectation that flowed through daily life. In tending to it, women reclaimed fragments of autonomy, maintained dignity in secrecy, and navigated the invisible epidemic with careful, deliberate grace, preparing for tomorrow with a measured mind, steady hands, and the quiet fortitude that defined their lives. Even in the depth of night, letters often whispered their presence, folded neatly on a desk or tucked into drawers, bearing messages of hope, guidance, and delicate confidences. Women read and reread these letters with quiet reverence, their eyes tracing familiar curves of ink, their minds absorbing the empathy and understanding that had been sent across distance and circumstance. Each line offered both solace and counsel, a bridge to minds and hearts beyond the confines of strict social expectation. Opium's lingering warmth softened each movement, smoothing the tension in shoulders and lending a measured patience to the act of reading, allowing thoughts to drift gently between gratitude, reflection, and contemplation. Servants, having long retreated to their quarters, remained unaware of these silent dialogues unfolding within private rooms. The letters were as invisible to the household as the quiet strength they inspired, yet they shaped the rhythms of thought, strategy, and emotional endurance. Children, if awake, lay quietly, absorbing without knowing the lessons of empathy, subtlety, and resilience that these correspondences imparted. Even in sleep, the rhythms of care and discretion were being observed, internalized, and woven into the fabric of daily life. In the soft murmur of letters, women found a rare freedom, the freedom to think, to question, and to nurture hope. In the face of social constraints and invisible dependence, it was a gentle reminder that even in isolation, connection persisted, and strength could be drawn from shared understanding, unseen and often unspoken, yet profoundly influential. As night deepened further, the letters were folded once more, returned to their hidden corners, their messages lingering in mind and memory, sustaining resilience, dignity, and quiet fortitude, until the first faint light of morning began to filter through the curtains. As the night deepened toward its quietest hour, women engaged in subtle preparation for the day that lay ahead. Even within the constraints of expectation and dependency, these small acts of readiness carried profound meaning, allowing mind and body to synchronize and creating a delicate sense of control within a world governed by strict social norms. A washcloth dampened with warm water, the careful folding of garments, the soft adjustment of bedding, all became meditative gestures, rituals in which attention to detail intertwined with reflection. Each motion was deliberate, each pause a chance to align breath, thought, and intention. Opium, taken earlier in the evening, left a lingering warmth that softened fatigue and tension, encouraging a gentle, measured pace in these preparations. The sensation was subtle yet grounding, providing a quiet companion to the small, necessary motions of personal care. Servants, now fully retired, left the household enveloped in silence, a canvas upon which women could paint their thoughts, plans, and quiet strategies. Even the faintest noises, a clock's soft ticking, a distant carriage, or the rustle of leaves outside, were incorporated into the rhythm of awareness, a gentle acknowledgement of a world beyond the room. Children, nestled in bed, were left undisturbed, their sleep forming a protective cocoon for the household's nocturnal activities. Women moved with mindfulness, aware of the importance of every gesture, every measured step, and every small action that maintained order, dignity, and discretion. This quiet hour of preparation was more than habit. It was an assertion of agency, a recognition that even within constraint, small actions could preserve dignity, fortify resilience, and sustain the intricate balance between duty, expectation, and private needs. In these moments, the invisible currents of dependency were acknowledged without confrontation, integrated into routines with care, and transformed into a steady rhythm that carried women through the challenges of tomorrow, quietly, gracefully, and with enduring strength. In the stillness of night, women often embraced a gentle ritual, a set of deliberate actions that prepared both body and mind for rest. Each movement, pouring warm water, arranging linens, adjusting pillows, carried intention, creating a sanctuary of calm amidst the pressures of daily life. Opium, present in measured doses, softened the edges of physical strain and mental fatigue. Its warmth intertwined with the quiet, deliberate rhythm of night, allowing thought to flow with gentle clarity and creating a delicate bridge between necessity and reflection. Every object, every gesture, was part of a carefully choreographed routine. Books, letters, and small keepsakes were placed with care, as if each item carried a fragment of strength or memory. These small acts of organization and attention offered a subtle control over an otherwise unpredictable and socially constrained life. Servants, having completed their duties, moved quietly elsewhere or retired to their own quarters. Their absence created a space of uninterrupted solitude, a time in which women could attend fully to themselves, without observation or intrusion. Children, tucked securely in bed, dreamed softly, their presence forming a gentle backdrop to the night's rituals. Even in sleep, their rhythms influenced the careful, measured pace of the adult household, embedding lessons of discretion, patience, and observation. This gentle ritual was more than preparation. It was meditation in motion, a quiet assertion of self, a reaffirmation of dignity, and a soft negotiation with dependency. Each act reinforced resilience, sustained emotional equilibrium, and nurtured the quiet fortitude that allowed women to face the unrelenting expectations of the coming day. In the soft glow of candlelight or moonbeam, the night's ritual became a sanctuary, a space in which body, mind, and spirit were aligned in gentle harmony, and where the invisible burdens of social expectation and private dependence were met with quiet grace and enduring strength. In the deep hours of night, soft whispers often filled the air, not voices spoken aloud, but murmurs carried in thought, memory, and quiet reflection. Women reached inward, offering themselves consolation, patience, and gentle understanding, a dialogue with the self that no one else could witness. Opium, still present in measured warmth, created a subtle ease, allowing minds to trace delicate patterns of memory, hope, and desire. The past unfolded with tender clarity, and each recollection, small triumphs, fleeting joys, minor sorrows, was examined with gentle compassion, a recognition of endurance in the face of invisible struggles. Servants, having completed their nightly duties, were absent from these chambers, leaving the space enveloped in quiet, private reflection. Even the softest sounds, the shifting of fabric, a floorboard settling, the rustle of curtains, became part of a rhythm of mindful awareness, acknowledging life's subtle movements without distraction. Children, deeply asleep, rested in unknowing proximity, their breathing forming a soft cadence that harmonized with the room's quiet. These moments of whispered consolation were intertwined with the household's nocturnal life, a gentle interplay of care, thought, and unseen presence. The whispered consolations were not mere acts of self-soothing. They were affirmations of dignity, resilience, and quiet courage. In the solitude of night, women reconciled the demands of social expectation with private reality, navigating the delicate currents of dependency and tracing the contours of strength that lay quietly within them. Each moment of reflection, each inward whisper, reinforced a subtle power, the ability to endure without complaint, to maintain grace under pressure, and to cultivate a private world of understanding in which even the weight of an invisible epidemic could be acknowledged, managed, and quietly endured. And as the night deepened, the whispered consolations lingered, an invisible companion to resilience, softening the edges of fatigue and guiding the spirit toward the gentle horizon of sleep. In the sanctuary of late night, women often turn to writing, pens gliding across paper, forming lines that carried thoughts too fragile for spoken words, and emotions too complex to be shared openly. The act of writing became a ritual, a quiet affirmation of presence and agency. Each stroke of ink traced memories, reflections, and hopes, transforming ephemeral thought into tangible evidence of inner life. Opium's gentle warmth lingered in the body, softening tension, easing weariness, and allowing the mind to wander gracefully across recollections, observations, and dreams. In these hours, the boundaries between past and present blurred into a reflective flow, a calm meditation on life's delicate intricacies. Servants, long retired to their quarters, moved silently through the distant halls, unaware of the intimate worlds unfolding in the private chambers. This solitude allowed for uninterrupted thought, a sacred privacy in which self-expression could flourish, without scrutiny, judgment, or interruption. Children, asleep in their beds, dreamed softly, their slumber a quiet backdrop, against which the household's hidden creativity unfolded. In this environment, the mind found space to organize memory, craft understanding, and nurture resilience. The hidden hour of writing was more than mere correspondence. It was a gentle negotiation with life's limitations. Through letters, diaries, and notes, women maintained connections with distant confidants, shared wisdom and consolation, and carved small spaces of autonomy in lives constrained by social expectation and dependency. In these quiet nocturnal hours, the inked lines became companions, mirrors of thought, and subtle guides through the challenges of tomorrow. The hidden hour of writing nurtured strength, sustained dignity, and cultivated a gentle, enduring harmony between mind, body, and spirit. In the hushed hours of night, a silent companionship unfolded between women and their thoughts, between their bodies and the gentle warmth that lingered from the evening's measures, and between memory and reflection, weaving an invisible thread of presence. The room, dimly lit by candlelight or softened moonbeams, became a sanctuary where time slowed, and the usual demands of the day melted into quiet observation. Every breath, every subtle movement, carried awareness, intention, and an unspoken ritual of care. Opium, present in measured traces, calmed both mind and body, softening aches and smoothing tension, allowing contemplation to deepen without strain, and creating a gentle rhythm between sensation and thought. Servants, long retired, left the household in a cocoon of quiet, their absence a prerequisite for this invisible companionship. In solitude, women could navigate inner landscapes freely, explore private memories, and nurture resilience without fear of observation. Children slept quietly nearby, their soft breathing forming a backdrop of life's continuity, a quiet reminder of responsibility, protection, and tender care. The night allowed for subtle reflection on the challenges of social expectation, dependency, and the often invisible struggles woven through daily existence. This silent companionship was both refuge and practice, a space to honor endurance, cultivate dignity, and sustain the mind's quiet fortitude. It was here, in stillness and reflection, that women reaffirmed their agency, finding gentle strength in awareness, and nurturing the delicate balance of body, mind, and spirit that would carry them into the coming day. And as the night deepened further, the room held this quiet presence like a breath held softly in the chest, a testament to resilience, contemplation, and the enduring human capacity for grace. In the quiet of night, women navigated a careful balance between rest and vigilance, between reflection and preparation, between the outward appearance of composure and the inward realities of endurance. The soft glow of candlelight illuminated small movements, the gentle folding of linens, the adjustment of garments, the precise arrangement of objects that sustained the household's order. Every gesture was deliberate, measured, part of an invisible choreography that maintained dignity, control, and subtle resilience. Opium's warmth lingered, blurring tension and fatigue, allowing the body to soften without surrendering awareness, and creating a quiet space in which thought could move freely, exploring memories, plans, and the delicate contours of personal reflection. Servants, having retired hours before, left rooms empty and silent, their absence essential to the rhythm of the night. In solitude, women could reconcile dependency with agency, attend to private concerns, and exercise the small, careful choices that sustained autonomy. Children, asleep in nearby rooms, dreamed quietly, their breathing forming a gentle cadence that harmonized with the household's nocturnal rhythm. Even in slumber, they bore witness, indirectly, to the lessons of discretion, endurance, and mindful observation that were embedded into these nightly routines. The careful balance extended beyond the physical to the emotional and mental realm. Women negotiated feelings of anxiety, hope, and fatigue, interweaving reflection and self-consolation, until a subtle harmony emerged, a quiet equilibrium between vulnerability and strength, between need and resilience. In these hours, the invisible currents of dependency, expectation, and social constraint were met with measured attention, gentle mindfulness, and deliberate grace. The night's careful balance nurtured strength, sustained dignity, and created a soft, resilient foundation for the day that would come, allowing women to face the world with quiet, enduring composure. As the clock approached the heart of midnight, a profound stillness settled over the household. The world beyond seemed suspended, leaving rooms, hallways, and chambers wrapped in a delicate quiet. Women often embraced this hour as a time of reflection, a space in which the mind could traverse memories, dreams, and unspoken thoughts. The pressures of society, the constraints of expectation, and the subtle weight of dependency softened under the gentle rhythm of night and the lingering warmth of opium. Each breath, slow and measured, became a link between body and mind, a reminder of endurance and the quiet power of attention. Even the faintest noises, a distant carriage, a shifting shutter, the rustle of leaves, were absorbed into this reflective rhythm, acknowledged but not disturbing, forming part of the meditative tapestry of the hour. Children, deep in sleep, provided a silent backdrop, their dreams weaving into the room's hushed atmosphere, offering subtle lessons of continuity, patience, and observation. Midnight reflection became a sanctuary of thought. Women considered the patterns of their days, the strategies of secrecy and survival, and the delicate interplay of autonomy and constraint that shaped their lives. Every memory revisited, every quiet observation strengthened resilience, reinforced dignity, and nurtured a subtle, enduring fortitude. In the stillness of midnight, the invisible epidemic that had silently shaped so many lives was acknowledged softly, without panic or despair, but with measured awareness, understanding, and acceptance. Here, in the heart of night, the mind found clarity, the spirit found calm, and the body, softened by gentle warmth, prepared to rest and renew, ready to face the unfolding day with grace and quiet strength. As the first pale light of dawn began to filter through curtains, the household remained in a delicate hush, caught between the lingering night and the awakening day. The soft glow illuminated rooms in gentle, forgiving tones, revealing the quiet traces of night's rituals, reflections, and private care. Women rose slowly, guided by instinct, habit, and measured attention. Every movement, stretching limbs, arranging garments, attending to simple tasks, was deliberate, unhurried, a continuation of the night's meditative rhythm. The warmth of opium, taken in the quiet hours before, faded gradually, leaving behind a calm clarity, a mind attuned to endurance and thoughtfulness, a body prepared to meet the demands of social expectation. Servants began their quiet stirrings, attending to duties with soft steps, their presence seamlessly integrated into the household's rhythm. The room's stillness was replaced by the gentle orchestration of morning routines, yet the lessons of the night, the reflection, the rituals, the whispered consolations, remained embedded in every gesture, every breath, every glance. Children awoke slowly, their dreams melting into the gentle cadence of daylight, their presence a reminder of responsibility, care, and tender vigilance. Even in early morning, the influence of night persisted. The quiet fortitude, the measured awareness, the subtle resilience cultivated in hours unseen. The dawn offered renewal, but not sudden or overwhelming. It was a gentle transition, a soft continuation of the night's meditative flow. Women carried forward the calm strength nurtured in darkness, ready to navigate dependency, expectation, and the subtle currents of social life, with dignity, grace, and enduring patience. And as the day fully awakened, the household carried forward a delicate harmony, a quiet resilience forged in the night, a mindful presence that sustained body, mind, and spirit, and a profound understanding that even amidst challenge, grace could be preserved, strength could be nurtured, and the rhythm of life could continue quietly, gently, beautifully. And so, as dawn settles softly across the quiet streets, the world begins to stir, while the echoes of the night linger gently in memory. The stories of lives once hidden, of struggles quietly endured, and of resilience found in solitude, remain etched softly in the rhythm of time. We carry forward the lessons of endurance, the gentle strength forged in reflection, and the quiet fortitude nurtured in moments unseen. Let the mind rest now. Let thoughts drift like the first morning light, and let the heart hold softly the understanding that even amidst challenge, grace, dignity, and resilience can persist, guiding each day with calm and gentle purpose. As you breathe slowly, comfortably, let this quiet reflection accompany you, a reminder of the delicate balance between struggle and strength, and the enduring beauty of human endurance. Rest now peacefully, as the world awakens gently around you, and carry forward the quiet wisdom of night into the unfolding light of a new day.